Okay.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get to this thing called
life.
Hello. It's your girl D
and Key
from this thing called life. And life is really happening. Okay, let's just go ahead and get this party started. Miss Tennille just joined us. Hold on just a moment. There is our other beautiful guest.
Hello,
she has just joined us. Hello. We are in the process now of getting ready to I'm going to oh, that's fine. Yeah, I've got my towel on deck, everybody. For those of you that saw my post. Keith, she came ready for me as well. She brought me some Kleenex. So I'm about to be a whole punk in front of the world for the first time. I'm just saying. Don't be looking at me like that. Just, a whole pump. I said a whole one. Okay, as she sips her tea. See, the love of a sister, you know what I'm saying? But today, everyone, I want to introduce to you all two absolutely amazing women. We have on screen Miss Christy Sentell-Jacobs, who is actually someone that I've known since I was knee-high to a duck. And she is an absolute joy. We went to school together. We graduated together. Corinth Warriors for life. Whoop, whoop. But what stands out more than any of that awesome stuff I just mentioned is she has her own, her and her husband have their own real life Iron Man in the house with them. And we're going to allow her the opportunity after we introduce the guest to talk about some of the things that their family has gone through and dealt with as they've lived this thing called life on his journey with scoliosis. And our other guest, award-winning author, publisher, all things, dealing with books, grammar, literature, you name it, Ms. Tennille M. Jackson of, is it APS?
APS.
Yes, yep. Okay. I had it right in my head. I'm not always on track, but when I know something, I know something. But with Neil, she has two absolutely fantabulous daughters. And I've never met them, but just the resilience of these two young ladies to decide to go through and have their operations one day apart so that they could go through recovery together, dealing with scoliosis. It floored me. And I was like, you know what? This is something that we don't hear a lot about, but there are probably so many of us walking around dealing with this without even being aware.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring awareness to this particular issue and allow these ladies to talk about their awesome children and their journeys as a family dealing with scoliosis. Whichever one of you want to jump out there first is fine with me.
Christy, you want to go first?
Sure.
So we have a little guy named Tucker, and he has a lot of different issues that he deals with, but one of them has been scoliosis. We knew early on that he, had, mild scoliosis, but he didn't sit until he was 17 months old. And that was kind of like a marker. They said if he can sit by the time he's 17 months old, he should be able to walk someday. But his problem is there's 3 different types of scoliosis. His is the neuromuscular, and that just means that his muscles aren't strong enough to support his body. And so over time, it kind of causes the spine to curve. So when he started sitting at about 17 months old, he did what they call prop sitting. So he would kind of lean on his hands and hold himself up. But when he did that, he always kind of sat a little, crooked. So as he continued to grow, and then eventually at 4.5, he did walk. But because his muscles have never been strong enough to hold him up straight, the more he grew, the worse the curve became in his back. So he had an S curve. So he had 2 curves, and the bottom portion of his S curve was also rotated. So it made it even a little more complicated. And he started needing growth hormones a couple of years ago, which was good because it helped him begin to grow because he had kind of plateaued on his height. But then those growth spurts again increased the degree of his curves. So we've been watching it, keeping an eye on it for several years. And then it got to the point where both of his curves were over 55%. And it's amazing how quickly you forget some of these little details. I can't remember exactly what they were, but I know they were over that 55 mark. And that's when we made the decision to go ahead and have the spinal fusion surgery, where they fused 2 rods to his spine and straightened it out as much as possible. And it's pretty incredible that the difference in his spine now. And he gained a couple of inches just in height, just from straightening his body. Oh, it's pretty incredible to see. And I'm sure I told Tennille yesterday, I'm in awe of her going through this twice close together, because it was such a hard experience. And for me, for our little guy, he doesn't always cognitively understand things on age level. So it was really hard to explain to him what was happening and why he was in pain and why he was having to go through it. But we did get through it, and it's been a little over a year since his surgery, and he healed wonderfully. We do have to go back soon for a follow-up. And there is an area for him that we're still watching. They couldn't completely straighten his entire spine, or it would have greatly reduced his mobility. So we're just having to watch the lower part to make sure it doesn't increase or cause him any pain. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. So.
Don't you start, Demetria. Don't you?
I don't do nothing.
Start.
Okay.
Don't you start. I can't. Because I'm telling you why I'm sitting here, because I almost cried. So I'm like, no, because I still got to keep it together. But I told you I wasn't wearing no makeup today because I already know what this is going to be. But look, so to Christy's point, a lot of what Tucker had to go through is the same way. So I have 4 daughters, and 2 of them have scoliosis. So we learned in the process that scoliosis is actually hereditary. And so 2 of them had it, 2 of them didn't. And so and the way that we found out was really crazy. So let me just backtrack real quick. The 15, she'll be 16 soon, but the older of the 2, when she was 11, she would complain about back pain all the time. And so I remember taking her to the doctor, and so they were like, you know what, let's do some x-rays, blah, blah, blah. And so we went through all of the testing, and they had told me, they're like, you know what, we'll follow up with you to give you the results. If you don't hear anything, no news is good news. And, you know, with this thing called life, next thing you know, years had passed, but I didn't realize that it had been years. And they were, so now fast forward from 11 to 15, I was taking the 3 younger ones. So Ariana, Angel, and Jariah, I was taking the 3 younger ones to the doctor to get their follow-ups for school, their shots and stuff. And so I remember at that point, I don't know why, but it just occurred to me to ask the doctor, you know what? Whatever happened to those results? Because Ariana has kind of been complaining about her back again. And so when she pulled it up, she was like, well, you know what? At that point, she had a 52% curve. And so, like, for those of you who are not familiar with scoliosis, like if you're over a 50% curve, then they may consider surgery as an option. Anything under that 50% or under, then they'll try to institute the back braces. And so they were like, 4 years ago, she may have been able to benefit from having a back brace. But now when she saw the curve on her, she's like, you know what, we need to get her over to a specialist. And so what happened was, because she knew that scoliosis was hereditary, she tested the other 2 sisters too. And so it turned out that the other one, she's like, well, you know what, I'm not sure, because this isn't my area of expertise, but it seems like that Angel has some type of a curve going on too. So why don't you just make them both a follow-up appointment with a specialist, which we did. And so when we got there, here's the thing. It turned out that Ariana's curve, the one who was at 52%, she was at a 65%. But the one who I didn't even know about, she had an 80% curve. It was as you call the double curve or the S curve. She had an 80% double curve. I had not even paid attention because of my daughters. Angel is the one that is, like, in terms of weight, she's the heaviest. So I didn't pay attention. Ariana is the smallest one. So you couldn't help but see the curve, because she had like a hump in her back, and you couldn't help but see it. And so it was crazy. And it was the point where their doctor was like, you know what? It's only one option right now, and that's surgery. That's all that you can do. You can take them to how many other specialists you want. They're all going to tell you the exact same thing. So for me at that point, it was, where do we sign up? I mean, to the point that because here was the thing. If Ariana would not have had the surgery, he was saying that she would have a lifelong deformity. With Angel, because of the way that her spine was curved, it was going to cause her some pulmonary issues because it was impeding upon some of her major organs. And so it's really just a blessing, the fact that she had not really been experiencing any type of hardships at that point. So I'm gonna pause right now, and because this obviously is more to the story, but I just want to pause because I don't want to take over the whole interview. But yeah, it was a lot to find out on the first day that we found all of this at one time.
We had an option to do, well, we did use bracing with Tucker as well, but in his case, it just wasn't enough to help. And getting him to wear the brace as much, they wanted him to wear it, 23 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that just wasn't possible. He has some other medical issues that he deals with. He has a feeding tube and different things like that. So wearing it at night wasn't an option for him. So the brace, prolonged the inevitable, but it didn't prevent it. But I know for some children are even, they actually will cast them. They will put a cast on their body, and they'll replace that cast every few weeks, I guess. But again, with Tucker's issues, that was never an option. But yeah.
Well, I wanted to, with permission, I am going to share the braces, some of the braces that Tucker has worn over the years, but I also want to share like images of, you know, the different types of scoliosis that are there, but in reference to some of what Christy was just saying, as far as what she's dealt with Tucker, even as a little one, you know, he's had to deal with, you know, the different.
Is that one in the onesie?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yes.
The one at the bottom. Yeah, that one at the bottom was a different type of bracing that we tried briefly, but it was really complicated and wasn't practical to use.
Okay. And then, so when she was mentioning, well, let me do this first before I show him. These are some of the types of scoliosis. I got this image offline, you know, after just kind of going through searching. But you have the, you know, the healthy spine, which is the one on the far left. Then you have the thoracic scoliosis, which is basically, you know, closer to the top. Then you have the lumbar, which is closer to the bottom. Then you have the thoraciolumbar, which is actually touching the top and the bottom together.
so it's like in the mid.
Yes. And then you have the combined scoliosis, which is basically affecting the entire spine. Now, you know, when you look at it from the front and the back, I mean, from the side, you know, you have your angles that you have going on. But then when you look at it from the front, that's where you get the names of the various, types of scoliosis based on the location of the actual curve in the back. Now, we talk about, you know, Christy, you know, she was fortunate enough to allow us to share Tucker's x-ray. And this is where, you know, people can kind of see pre-surgery versus his surgery after, you know, what she was talking about. He had gained, you know, those couple of inches because it straightened his, because of the straightening of his spine. And, you know, and then when you talk about how, you know, this baby has endured, you know, I had open heart surgery and I caught absolute blues, and my incision was on the front. So I can only imagine what, you know, Tucker and Tennille's, you know, girls have endured, because a lot of us innately sleep on our backs or we sleep on our sides. And so if you would kind of take us through that aspect of dealing with the, you know, post-op, when you're talking about, you know, how do they rest? Are they having to sit up? Do they have to lay on their stomachs? You know, are they in braces? Or, you know, what is the, did they have to deal with?
Well, with Ariana and Angel, because here's the irony. I thought that they were going to be on their stomachs, but they actually, when they come out of surgery, they're laying on their backs. And you would think that if their backs are cut wide open, that they would not be lying on their backs. But like Ariana's surgery was about 5 hours, and Angel's, again, because she had the double S curve, hers went about 7 hours. So the entire time they're laying on their front for the surgery, but when they come out, they're laying on their backs. And so the problem, though, is that they're not able to move. So it's like the first couple days, they're really dead weight. So you literally are having to move them because they can't get comfortable, you know, and it's hard because like for me, I have my own spinal issues, but it's like I'm trying to constantly move them and they're in pain. But the great thing about it is that they did allow them to self-medicate. So they had like a button where every 15 minutes, I mean, that's how severe the pain was. With Angel, hers had to be reduced to every 10 minutes where they're able to, you know, push that button to relieve that pain. And so like the doctors literally told me, like the first 48 hours are going to be hellacious. If you can make it through those first 48 hours, and when I tell you guys, like, I thought that I knew Jesus, but it was this time that really helped, because to see your children go through that, and like for me, it was a back-to-back situation. Ariana, the older of the two, she's a year older. The older of the two went first, and she literally was in so much pain. Like when she came out of surgery, she still had her breathing mask on. She had tubes everywhere. Like, I had to leave out the room and come back in because I had just recently lost my dad. And when I came into her, that was the immediate thought that came rushing back to my head. And I'm like, girl, you got to get it together. You can't go up in that room crying, you know. And literally when she was able to come back to, she was just in so much pain. And so every 15 minutes, she's like, Mommy, can I push my button? Can I push my button? And I'm, you know, like, yeah, let's get through it. And she couldn't. Every 10 minutes, it's like, can you move me here? Can you move me here? And so it's like, when I say we were living in 15-minute increments for the first 48 hours, it was a 15-minute increment for 48 hours. And so then the next day, my next daughter comes in and she has to go through the exact same thing. And so now, you know, like they're both in ICU. And thank God, though, yeah, they're in intensive care for 2 days. So thank God, like we had kind of prepped with the hospital. So the hospital knew that I had 2 daughters coming in. So they were like right next door to each other. One was in room 474, the other one was in room 472. So I'm literally like going back and forth. And I thought I was going, like, I just prayed, I'm like, Lord, I need you to give me strength, because saying exhausted, it doesn't even begin to describe how tiring it is, because it's not just physical exhaustion from being woke, but you're steadily moving them all the time. You're so it's tiring on the body, and I'm sure Christy can attest as well.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing it for 2, because it was completely and utterly exhausting. And you know, he couldn't even, I mean, he can talk, but he couldn't really verbalize what he needed to happen. So he was constantly saying, I want to roll over. You know, you'd roll him over, and 2 minutes later, he wanted to roll the other way and readjust. And it was just a constant thing, and no sleep. We were fortunate to go to Shriners Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, and that's where his surgery was done there. So my husband and I were there, and we just took turns. One would spend one night at a hotel resting, and then we would switch off because you wouldn't get any sleep. And we ended up being there for 7 days, I think, 6 or 7 days, I think, just because it took him a little longer, you know, to get those milestones that they needed before we went home, because we live, you know, 7 hours from there. So I wasn't ready to drive 7 hours home until I was sure I could handle
Absolutely.
that recovery.
Yeah, because like you're saying, Christy, because there are certain milestones that they need to see the child be able to accomplish before they will release them. So like they have to be able to use the washroom, they have to be able to walk. In their case, because there are stairs in the house, they need to be able to climb the stairs to make sure, and you know, otherwise they're not going to sign off. And so when you're thinking these kids have just endured having their entire backs cut open, and you're ready for them to walk, you know, and not just walk, but you want them to walk up and down these stairs. And, you know, so for the first, like I say, the first couple of days, they were in intensive care. And so because Ariana started out earlier, she was upstairs the day before Angel. So now I go from being back and forth to rooms to up and down, you know, 4th floor, 6th floor. And when I tell you the entire nursing staff knew me, like, it just kind of becomes a family. But my girls were really troopers. They really was. And I was so just impressed by their strength, really.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I don't know if they could have done more to prepare me, but I wasn't prepared. And one thing is to keep in mind when, their muscles and their spine have been in that position for so long, and then they go in and rearrange it, their muscles remember how they were. So I remember the first time they got Tucker up out of the chair to try to take a few steps, and he was all hunkered over, because that's what his muscles were trying to get back in the same position. And I just remember thinking, what did we do? What did we do? We shouldn't have done this. Look at him, and it just took, a couple of days for his body to get used to, okay, this is a new position. We've got to start working differently. And, muscles that weren't as active and, all those kind of things, they just have to relearn because they were used to being in a different position for so long. And I was going to comment too, because when you put the picture up of his scar, I know some people may say, why would you show that? But, we met, I just met someone in a restaurant one day and got to know her and became Facebook friends. And her daughter had this surgery. And it was probably 4 years before Tucker had his surgery. But I remember she posted a picture of her daughter's scar, and it rocked me because I did not expect to see a scar like that on his back. So that prepared me for what was coming. So when that part came, it wasn't as shocking because I already knew to expect that. So I shared those things with, Tucker's journey with people because, whether it's scoliosis or something else he's dealing with, the medical field, they're wonderful people, but sometimes they're just not real good at preparing you.
Yeah, practically.
For what's coming. So I think that's up to us to share our experiences so that the next person coming along goes, okay, so the first time they stand up, they're not going to stand perfectly straight. Or he didn't. I mean, he wanted to go back into that same position and his body wouldn't let him. And it was really difficult, for the first few days. And I thought, is he ever going to walk normal? I really questioned why we did this. Now, of course, now, he walks well and it's fine. But in those moments, what did we do?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was getting ready to be my question. Is it a marked difference now? Do you see in all of the children? I know you're saying that, that now you can see where it has definitely made a difference. In Tucker, are the girls, do you see a difference in them as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ariana, when she went into the surgery, she was 4'11". She's now 5'2". Angel, when she went in, she was 5'1". She's now 5'5". And, and so like with her, it's so much of a difference too, because again, remember I was saying that of my children, she was the heaviest because, her weight was, so now like she looks totally different. She totally looks like she slimmed down and I'm like, wait a minute, how are you taller than I am? And so it's like now she's kind of looking down at me because I'm 5'4", so I know she's at least an inch taller than I am. So like just in terms of visibility, you can definitely tell that they're taller. And exactly like what Christy was saying, their bodies are used to walking the way that they did before scoliosis. And so like for that first week, they're leaning and you have to kind of help them straighten up, but it's too painful to touch them because their bodies are in so much pain. So I think it was until like maybe the second or third week before I started to help, balance them back right. And so for me also having girls, like one of the questions that I asked pre-op was, if they had to have C-sections, because all 4 of my daughters were all C-sections. I didn't give natural childbirth. And so the question for me was, if they had some of the same issues that I had, would this surgery impede upon their ability to have a C-section? And, the doctor was saying, depending on, especially with Angel, because she had the double curve, it's a chance. So, that's one of the questions when we do the follow-up, because I forgot to ask after the surgery, but their follow-up is actually next Friday. It's been 6 weeks already, and it doesn't even seem like it. But that's definitely one of the potential issues, is that because of how low they had to go on her spine, that if she has to have, and again, that's far off because they're only 14, but that's where my mind as a mother, that's what my mind was. So yeah.
I'm not saying much because I'm just not able, because every time I think about, and like I said, I've been following Tucker's journey just overall for a while. And when I think about, and the one thing that, with everything that he has endured, and the one thing that has, I'm not going to be a whole punk, but Christy posted a video of Tucker. Everybody knows the scene in Rocky where he goes up the stairs and gets to the top, and and he does his thing. And they went, and when she posted, every time, they have the steps, then they have the flat level, then they have the steps, then they have the flat level. But every time that baby would get to one of those flat pieces, he would turn around, I did it. And then, but when he got to the top,
you're not gonna make me cry.
When he got to the top, and he started rejoicing.
I saw that.
I thought about, excuses we make as individuals to not do the things that we do. I'm having a menstrual cramp, so I can't do this. I cut off half my thumb, so I can't do that. And I really did cut off like a big portion of my thumb, so that's not an exaggeration. And then I think about maybe going beyond what the doctors said he shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
And to be able to not only see him walk, but to see him go up all of those stairs.
I'm telling you, that's what got me.
And it's just like, that was a few years ago. And you see, every time I think about it, I just turn into a whole punk. But it's just the joy of watching their, and he has the perfect nickname, Iron Man, because he is such an inspiration. And then when I think about Tennille's girls making the decision to go through
and to do it
together because they wanted to be a support for one another.
That's amazing.
And then to have no people with family members where family members won't even acknowledge one another. But then these girls decide, not only am I going to be a support for my sister, but we're going to go through this thing. We're going to hurt together. We're going to cry together. We're going to be high together. We're going to do all this stuff together. And it's just like their stories of resiliency. We're talking about teenagers, 14, 15-year-old teenagers.
Yes, because
that act more. Yeah.
Because Tucker's 14.
Yeah.
And the girls are 14 and
15, I think she said. But I'm gonna flip over to the comments because I'm over it. One of the comments that came from Annette, and let me acknowledge everyone. First off, let me say hello, Kim, Beatrice, Annette, Demetra Pitts, and whomever else may be on that. I just can't see your name. Demetrius, thank you. But Annette said, I know I got here late, and this question may have been asked or addressed, but what were the causes of their child's scoliosis diagnosis? I know there are various causes, but I just wanted to know their cause if it's something they want to share. And one thing that was said, Annette, was that it is hereditary. Can be hereditary. But as far as their individual stories, I'll let the mother share that with you all.
Yeah, well, for Ariana and Angel, it was just that it was hereditary, and so I just thank God that all 4 of my daughters didn't have it, because whereas the other 3 had been tested, I had to go at once they tested and I found out it was hereditary. I immediately had my older daughter tested, and I'm like, if you got it too, we can't do 3 at a time. And so thank God that hers came out and her spine was perfect. So the oldest and the youngest, their spines were perfect. And I just even have to say with that, when we're talking about resiliency, that was really hard, because as Christy said, we were in the hospital for a week. And so with COVID, it's not like the sisters could be there too, so you're in there, you don't have like visitors that can come and relieve you and all of this stuff, because you're in corona culture. And so like basically I thank God, because my goddaughter was able to come to relieve me, and I would go home. So like I was at the hospital for 2 days, and then she was able to come up there, and I was able to go home and see my other 2 daughters, because I hadn't seen them for 2 days. So just going back and forth, it was really a lot, but they were troopers. But for my particular story, it was hereditary. That's how they came upon having scoliosis.
Yeah, so Tucker's is neuromuscular. There could be a hereditary factor in there as well, because my dad did have a little bit of scoliosis too, but I'm not sure his didn't come on until maybe later in life, just as he aged. So I'm not sure if Tucker's is hereditary, but Tucker does. He has, well, like I've mentioned, a lot of different issues, but one being low muscle tone. So when he was born, he was what they call a floppy baby. I didn't know. I mean, I thought he's just a little more relaxed than my other 2 children. But as he grew, you start to realize, because babies, when you pick them up, they actually help you because they stiffen up, so it's a little easier to pick them up. But with Tucker, it was just always like dead weight. He couldn't hold his body up. So we started learning these things at about 4 or 5 months old. But like I said, the scoliosis didn't really start to become an issue until he started sitting, and then eventually standing. And then when he wasn't able to hold his body up, his muscles weren't strong enough to hold his body up. That's when the scoliosis began to develop and increase over time.
Yeah, well, we have a couple of additional comments. One is Demetri Pitch. She was like, "That's absolutely awesome. To be grateful for that milestone, girl." I'm not going back down that road, because I just stopped crying. Good evening, Lady Beverly. And so she also said, "Courage has nothing to do with age. It comes from within, and I'm grateful for their strength to endure and support one another." Mm-hmm. And Demetris has said, these testimonials are amazing. I applaud you all and your children's strength. Thank God for healing and restoration.
Amen. Amen.
I just want to say, I know that, one of those, we talk about, the strength of a mother. And we talk about, we look at some of these mothers and we're just like, why do they have children? Why does that person have children? If that's how you're going to be. And then we see like you who, we're mothers. Like that is fact. That is no question. All the time. There's no question that's who you 2 women are. And to be able to endure this, and like you said, to be in the hospital with them and with Tucker, being able to communicate, but not really say, okay, this is what's going on with me, and this, and I need these pain meds. And then for you, Tennille, to have to go back and forth between the 2 floors. And like you said, you were turning them every 15 minutes. That is absolutely amazing to me, and I applaud mothers. I mean, we talk about, oh well, I'm a mom. This is my child. This is, what else am I supposed to do? But there's so many who don't and who wouldn't. So I think that that is just a blessing. Not only are our children blessings to us, but then God turns around and blesses these certain children with these amazing mothers, and you two are definitely, whew, like your stories are just, see, I'm trying to be a little bit stronger. I'm keeping a little bit more of a sip upper lip than somebody else is. But I've also drank more tea.
I gave everybody one, and I was a punk tonight.
But I've also drank more tea, because that's my distraction. I'm gonna drink my tea.
I warned everybody because I knew. And there's a young lady here that says, Nadira Kofi. She says she's driving but listening. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Natty.
Annette says, thank you for responding and for your transparency, ladies. And then Kimberly, and she, oh my goodness, she just hit the nail on the head. Said, with the right people by your side, you can make it and do anything.
Absolutely.
And we talk about being super moms or what have you, but and I've even in the midst of, while they were dealing with everything, I mentioned to, I told Christy, I said, heck, you're Wonder Woman and your husband is Superman, because it's like, and they just made Iron Man, just keep Superman away from the kryptonite. You good to go, but it's one of
Titanium Man, but they didn't make costumes for that last year, so we went with Iron Man. Maybe we should create a Titanium Man costume.
They got them now.
So it's and so and in Tennille's case, I guess she would be Suri.
Yeah.
Suri from Black Panther.
Like, look here.
Whatchamacallit?
Angela.
Yeah, Angela, but her character.
That was the queen.
I know.
She ain't had no name. That was Queen Mother. There wasn't no name. Queen Mother. That was Queen Mother. She sure did, went and found him.
So
in the wilderness.
So we got Marvel, DC, and everybody. But and I'm saying that because I'm really trying to get myself together, because I just for real.
I know.
Am just so, when I think about the endurance of these young people.
Yeah.
Now it's cool to have that support system from your family, but to endure the pain, to have because to have these testimonies, and that's what they are. They are testimonies that are going to help others. Like Christy was saying, that mother who went through things with her daughter, and it helped her to prepare and to deal with what was to come. These are testimonies that are going to help someone else's family, someone else's children, someone. So when we talk about, having, bringing awareness to different conditions.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I have, and I'm going to go back to my ortho.
Absolutely.
My orthopedic doctor, because, there are certain things that I have been dealing with. And on my x-rays, they actually showed me, like, well, you've got the curvature of your spine, and he showed me where it was. And, and I have all of that stuff, your hips are uneven and and he went through a lot of stuff. And I did not
put two and two together.
Think about any of this, until I started doing more research on, preparing for this show.
Yeah.
That, well, dang, D.
We had that conversation last night.
We need to, you need to follow up with your orthopedic surgeon, your orthopedic doctors, because this could very well be a reason why, because I can't stand for an extended period of time because of the pain on one particular side of my body in the lower back area because of the pressure, because of the curvature. And like I said, the more I think about it, it's like it makes it. And see, Key was the one that was like, well, duh, you got this going on, you got that going on, you got this going on, you got that going on. And I'm like, well, no, she didn't say the well, duh. I said the well, duh, but she did point out the different aspects of what I've been dealing with. And I was like, and she was like, and I thought that was the reason why you thought about the topic, but it had nothing to do with me. It was your amazing children that brought this, made it touch my heart.
So I have to, okay, so first of all, when I saw the pictures of Tucker's back, when we were preparing for the show, that really kind of threw me because, I think that was my first like real introduction to it. Then I went back and read about Tennille's daughters. And so then she started filling me in more about, your children and what was going on. And then because we don't go into these shows with no knowledge, we just don't. So when then I then went and just started reading and just started like looking at x-rays and just looking at different pictures and talking and just reading the different kinds and this and that and the other. And so when I came to her and I'm just like, hey, everything happens for a reason. There is a purpose for everything. Absolutely, positively, everything. And so I have to say, again, you all are amazing. What you have gone through is amazing. Your children are, I don't even have words. That's not even, amazing is not even
the resiliency of,
right. Because I have my own, and I know that the health issues that she's gone through, which are nowhere near in comparison to what you all are talking about, but I know how I times. And so for your children to be going on with this, and this is not a spur of the moment thing. And I did not realize, Tennille, even though I read all of that, I did not realize that you're doing all of this during COVID. Like,
yeah. I've thought several times, I'm so glad we did this last year.
Yeah.
Instead of now. I can't imagine going through it now.
Yeah, that is mind blowing to me. And like you said, you had to run between the 2 floors and all the nurses.
Home.
No,
and then go home
because you still had 2 more.
And then so we've got comments, where it's got where it's like, God bless you, ladies.
Absolutely,
hands down, no, without question.
Without question.
And my twin is like, thank God for great moms. That's one reason the world can still be a better place. And then she hashtagged to me.
I have to just say that, I have to interject here a minute, if you don't mind, just to say, though, for me, and, Dimitri knows this from the things I've said, but without my faith in God and his strength, I wouldn't have made it through this.
That part.
I mean, I wouldn't. It's not me. It's not anything within me that made it through this trial, because I don't have it in me. And he just carried me through step by step.
Man, Christy, if I can just really echo that even louder, because just to give you guys a quick story, when we were in the hospital, Ariana went through a lot. It was a lot harder on her than it was on Angel. A couple reasons. Number one, when she was in there, 2 days later, she came on her cycle. And that was one of the things that the nurses said that could happen because of all the stress that the body is enduring. Now, let me also say that when she's on her cycle, she's on for 7 days and she always cramps in her back. So now she has to go through dealing with this surgery in her back, cramping in her back. And then one of the side effects to the pain medication is constipation. And so all of this she's feeling. And so by the second day, by Wednesday, she says, I don't want to take any medication anymore. She literally so her surgery is on October 19th. As of October 21, she stopped taking medication. She refused to take any of the rest of it. And she's like, because I'll go through the pain. Now, I feel a little bit responsible for that because that's what they've seen me do. I don't take medication. Like, I had a full hysterectomy 4 years ago. They sent me home with all types of morphine and oxycodone. I didn't take any medication, and they saw me go through that. And so she's like, Mommy, I don't want to take medication. Now, Angel, on the other hand, she give me my button, like Angel was saying it the whole time. But Ariana, and so I say that though to say that when she was going through, she was literally, there were times where she was just crying, and she's like, Mommy, please, can we pray? And she was like crying out to God. And so to Demetria's point, when she's talking about having a testimony, and this is what I tell them, now you don't have to live through my testimony. Both of you all have been able to see for yourselves what God is able to do. The fact that when we first came in, like, I refused to focus on the process. From the moment that I found out, I always just focused on what greater, what healed would look like, because having to stay focused in the moment, it was just way too overwhelming. So Christy, I totally concur. If it was not for my faith in God, like all of the stuff that I had to go through, I mean, because, it was some ignorant times, and I'm like, Lord, I need you to just hold me and keep me focused. And he did just that. And now it's a memory.
And so many details I find myself that I've already forgotten. That that in the midst of, you just kind of, you make it through. I guess it's kind of like a childbirth type thing. They say you forget the pain. You kind of get through it. You remember there was a lot of pain, and we had those complications from medication too. That's one reason we were there for 7 days. Just the constipation and stuff that happened.
Because you talked about they had to be able to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they're in pain, so they don't want to, to go. Yeah.
Oh.
And those are things that we don't think about, right? But like, their body was, when you have that surgery, everything is moved around in your body, and so it has to get back to going. And if it doesn't go, then that is going to affect how long it is that you stay. And so like, there are times when you've never been so glad to have a bowel movement, or things that we don't talk about, that's actually a natural part of life. And if you don't do it, it can really affect you. And so it's so many things that I have learned because of this. But just when we're talking about the awareness, that's one of the reasons why I wore green, because when we're talking about scoliosis awareness, that is the color for that. And so it's a lot of things that I also, like you ladies said, I had to research, because I didn't know anything about this condition. And then I look up and I got 2 girls that's going through it. So I got to figure everything out that I can figure out so we can get through this.
Right. Well, there are some questions on the floor. Comment the question.
Jesus.
It's like, sorry I'm late, but I wanted to know what promoted doctors to think your daughter had scoliosis, and what symptoms, did your daughters have? And she said she's asking for her daughter.
Well, for one daughter, so for Ariana, she literally had a hump in her back. Like, you could see that there was something off. And so that's what had me, what prompted me to have her tested. So there are tests that they can run to determine whether or not, so it's not like you just like winging it and looking at somebody's back. There are actually tests that they take to tell you what degree of a curve that you have, because as Christy was alluding to earlier, with like, you have mild cases, severe cases. Both of my daughters were severe because of how much past the 50-degree curve that they were. So once you get past the 50-degree curve, then pretty much there is no way to correct that. And the older that they get, like, they're steadily growing, so the curve is steadily growing. And so, in our case, Angel was 14 with an 80-degree curve. She still had years to grow, so that means that curve would have continued to grow. So yeah, you just have them tested. Ask the doctors if you think that your like if your daughter is complaining of back pain, or like if you see that she's a little off center, like if you notice a hump in her back, you can just ask them to test your child for scoliosis.
I know a lot of people I've heard of in recent years would go for their sports physicals, especially it seems to be more common in girls, I think. But when they go in for sports physicals, that's when the doctor will notice that their spine is a little curved, and that's brought it to attention to several people that I've known over the years.
Said that in response to your answers, like, great, thank you. But I'm gonna be honest, like for me, my husband, Gary's actually told me, even when we still lived in Mississippi, he was like, babe, you got like he'll be looking at me from behind and he'll be like, babe, you got like your spine and you got like this curve going on in your back. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I don't. He was like, yeah, like for real. Instead of your back doesn't just go straight up and down, you got this. And so I was like, well, I'm fine, because I'm so used to having so many different levels of pain. I have a very pain threshold. And I'm so used to having something ache all the friggin' time. So when he said that, I was like, man, we need to get you some more glasses because glaucoma or something setting in, or I'm just saying. And that's kind of how I brushed it off, not thinking about the fact that they're like, for real, may have been a curve in my back.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm glad we had the conversation last night. Now, Tania, I have a question for you. And Christy, this one, look, you get out of this particular question only because Tucker's a young man. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Are your daughters well endowed? Like,
yes,
they have boobs.
Yeah. And so is that because I know mine pulls on me, so that's why I'm saying, is that something that is going to, are they going to, is that something that they're looking at maybe causing a complication for them later, or?
Well, no, they're actually, no, it has nothing to, ironically enough, it has nothing to do with it. So they're able to balance the weight. So they don't have to have like a breast reduction or anything like that. It's fine. Like, what's crazy is that they're just now about to be able to go back to wearing undergarments because they couldn't, because again, you have that long curve, the scar that's on the back. So we had to make sure that when they were walking around that they had, clothes that were lined, let's say it like that. So like thicker t-shirts and stuff like that, because it couldn't be heavy clothing because of the back, because they couldn't hold the weight of it. So it's like, even when we were leaving the hospital, they couldn't put on the coat because the heaviness of the coat. So it's like they had to make sure, we had to make sure that whatever clothes they had were loose fitting, but not too loose, because the looser it is, the heavier it is. So it was really just kind of crazy finding that balance to having clothes that they could wear and that would be thick enough to not, show anything, because they couldn't wear any undergarments.
Because I was just, like I said, I was just thinking, because I know that, I remember especially when I was later in my teenage years, my mama popping my back because she would be like, you can't just be, because I would walk and I would just be curved and be hunched over. So I know that I make it a point now, but I find myself popping my daughter in her back. So I was just wondering if that is, if that was if it even deterred it more. But like you said, it oh, Jesus.
Well, it makes me wonder, even with Tucker, with him being a young fella, with his incision.
Is he broad-shouldered?
No.
Okay.
He's a small guy. Yeah, he's
okay. Because I was thinking,
but he did.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just.
Oh, Jesus.
You all have allowed the world to see my whole ugly cry face. Like, whole ugly cry face, but a portion of my ugly cry face. And I'm just gonna say thank you all, because it's, we're at the 7:00 mark. I'm gonna say thank you all for being willing to share your children's journeys and you all's journeys.
How about to say in their
with
journeys?
This, because and I'm just gonna go ahead and plug Christy's other two children, because they are absolutely, and her husband is phenomenal as well, but to plug her other two children, because to see how they love up on their brother and support their brother and keep him motivated, and because even in the hospital when
Wait, you have two other kids too?
when he yeah. So when he was even in the hospital before his surgery, she posted pictures of them. I think they were playing foosball or something, but they were playing different games and doing different things that were, and I was like, just to have that support system in place, to allow, him to quote unquote relax and kind of be in a pretty decent headspace and, things of that nature. I want to shout out her other two children because they are phenomenal with their younger brother as well.
Yeah, because he's the baby.
He's the baby.
He's the baby. Yeah.
Give them a public shout out.
Look, shout out to siblings, because and then your other two were like, and I have to, I think, praise all of them, because then none of them are like, what about us? Hi, Tucker.
I can't stand me too.
Oh my gosh! See, now they get to see my real ugly face. Oh my goodness! Oh my God.
That was supposed to make you smile, not cry, Demetria.
The happy tears, can't you tell?
No, because your voice keeps climbing. Ain't nobody tell nothing. Okay. I just want to say thank you, ladies. Thank you for sharing your stories, your children's stories.
Helping make others aware of it.
Yes.
Do you all have any parting words for those that may be watching and listening as I get myself together? Oh my God.
I don't know if there's any way to make those connections, but I'm always willing to talk to anyone who might be going, about to go on that journey too, to answer any questions, because like I said, the little bit that I knew ahead of time helped, but there was so much that we weren't prepared for. So if there is anyone out there that is about to go through that, I'd be more than happy to talk with them and help prepare them.
And you know what? I do have to give a shout out to a girlfriend of mine. Her name is Tavia. Her daughter had just gone through this same surgery maybe 3 months prior. And so once she knew that my daughters had to go through it, she kind of did exactly what Christy said. Hey, if you need us for anything, for any reason, let us know. And it turned out that all of our daughters shared the same doctor. So, it was really awesome to go through that. And so once the girls came out, they were like, they wanted to call her daughter because they wanted to see what better looked like. And so I would just encourage everybody, when you're going through something, for me, I just feel like transparency is power. And so it really could help somebody else go through. And so like you said, Christy, I'm the same way. If there is anything about this journey, and they're even at that same point where they want to share their story and let people know that you can make it through, and this is life after scoliosis. So absolutely.
Well, thank you, ladies. And I'm going to ask you all to kind of stick around. But for those of you who may have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Key. Both of these ladies have been tagged in, the promos and things of that nature. So, feel free to put a comment there, put a comment in the video, because they'll be able to go back and see it because they've been, tagged in or what have you. And I just want to say thank you all for sharing. Thank you for your transparency. Kia put up a comment earlier at the top where, a young lady had posted and said that had turned around and said, she said, I have a very mild form of scoliosis, nothing compared to what I've heard here this evening. Thank you for your transparency, ladies. Blessings. And so on that note, I'm going to say thank you all for joining us on this thing called life. Take care, everyone.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called
life.